This is Ray Hadley in the morning, right across Australia.
And good morning, welcome Wednesday the 7th of July. I'm Ray Hadley. It's great to have you company on 2GB, 2CC, 4BC, station on the Capital Radio, Midwest Radio, Grant Broadcaster and Resonate Networks. All our listeners, of course, on the 2GB and 4BC apps. Top of 17 in the city of Sydney, same out west to top of 21 in Brisbane. And we'll check the weather across the rest of listening area shortly. And no matter where you are, the number's the same, 131873. Email me, rayhadley.com, 2gb.com, 4bc.com.au. Access information from the program by going to facebook.com/The Ray Hadley Morning Show. Well, as you all know by now, in Sydney, Greater Sydney, another week of lockdowns. Well, I just wish the Premier had have waited 24, 48 hours. We have lockdowns until Friday. The numbers, I guess she knows what they are today already. We'll find out a bit later. We've gone upwards, downwards, 31, 35, 18, 16 over the weekend. Unfortunately, I've got another alert just been given to me. Anyone who was at the Commonwealth Bank Roselands in Sydney, a close contact, must immediately get tested and isolated for 14 days, regardless of the result. Now, it's Roselands Commonwealth Bank, the Roseland Shopping Centre. And it's 3 days last week, and it appears a worker has unfortunately gone to work with the virus. I guess asymptomatic, didn't know they had the virus. Last Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Now, that's last week I'm talking about. That's the 28th, 29th and 30th of June. Anyone that went to the bank, Monday 8 till 5, Tuesday 8 till 5, Wednesday 8 till 3:30, you are considered a close contact. And I don't know what the provisions are for banks to have QR codes. One would hope that they have them, but if they didn't and you went there, I'm told now by Health, and these figures will come out later today, numerous customers have tested positive. Numerous customers, not customers. So we have that. Close contacts also. Country Growers at Parramatta in Church Street, Wednesday last week, 5:35 to 5:55. Parramatta Coles, Westfield, Parramatta, last Wednesday between 5:45 and just past 6 o'clock. And a construction site, Toongabbie, on Aurelia Street, anytime from Monday, the 28th of June, to Friday, the 2nd of July. So I guess the construction company is in contact with all the contractors who were there at that construction site. But as I say, on the eve of Boris Johnson, the UK Prime Minister, saying, look, on July 19, we are easing the restrictions entirely. What he said, there'll be no legal restrictions on anyone doing anything. You'll use your personal judgment from July 19. Now, that would be of concern, I think, to his Chief Medical Officer, because he's saying at the same time, the Prime Minister of the UK saying, that's it, we're going forward, we've got to wear this and wear it into the future, because the Chief Medical Officer in the UK is saying we'll have 50,000 new cases a day as a result of that. And if those people have to be hospitalised, as some are now in Australia, because of this, and particularly in New South Wales, rather, because of this Delta variant, that would put a great pressure on the National Health Service over there. Now, the good news out of the UK is 86% of the population have had their first jab, 64% have had 2 jabs. So that's why he's making that decision. And what he's saying, basically, to the percentage of the population who won't get the jab, well, it's on your head. If you don't get the jab, get the virus, because we're sick of going into lockdown. So on July 19, they come out of lockdown. Unfortunately, in Australia, we don't have the same luxury of having so many people with the jab for a whole range of reasons. The AstraZeneca scare, which, of course, has been there for a while and then was even further heightened by the ridiculous statement of the Chief Medical Officer in Queensland, Dr. Young. In relation to all of this, we have, at the moment, 26 people in Sydney in hospital. Now, more than half of those people, I'm told, so 13 or 14, are younger than 55. So this Delta variant is attacking younger people. I think I mentioned yesterday, of the 6 in ICU, there are 6 of them aged between 50 and 80. But the youngest person in hospital at the moment with the virus is a 30-year-old. And, you know, we're saying that if you're under 40, you shouldn't get AstraZeneca. I've got staff members who are happy to have AstraZeneca, but one was going to have it yesterday, was told that they couldn't have it. They didn't have enough supply. And that's in Greater Sydney. So another week of lockdown. And like I say, I just wish the Premier had have given us some hope. And this is typical of the emails I'm getting from a working mum. Schooling from home nightmare. Now, Ben Fordham's made the point a number of times this morning. The Premier in New South Wales has said, look, if you've got to send the kids to school, send them to school. I guess for a babysitting service, because teachers won't be there in huge numbers, I wouldn't imagine, so it'll be some sort of babysitting service. The children should go back to school, in my opinion, as of Monday. They should certainly go back to school on Monday. I mean, we've had a few Delta cases coming out of schools. Rose Bay was one this week, the Rose Bay Public School that was announced, I think, on Monday. But we've got to keep some sense of normality. This working mum says if children are staying home next week, how they do their work. Last year, when we had the first lockdown, kids already at school, able to bring their laptops home. This time it's different. All the devices, computers they require to learn from are back at school. So the government expects all parents to make a special trip to the school in peak hour traffic, collect the equipment in lockdown, go home, a whole day of work gone for a start, then set the kids up. I have 3 young boys. Last year I ended up having to take annual leave for 3 weeks to assist my children. I understand that. Not a matter of turning on the computer and leaving them. The younger they are, the more help they need. Nearly every subject has a different platform we need to log on to, and then there are logins, passwords, logins and passwords rather. Multiply that by 3 children. I think by the end of it I was looking forward to recess and lunch more than the children. I take mine up to teachers, says Jacqueline. God bless you, Jacqueline, for being a good mum, but, I mean, you shouldn't be put in this position. The schools should be open next Monday. The Premier, what she should have done was waited until today or tomorrow, and don't worry about the health advice. The health advice is we're going to have more cases. We've got more cases. And what it might do is force the hand of those dolts, like the ones at Bowral, who, don't think they have to wear a mask in their organic shop. And I'll be playing some audio a bit later in the program from Robert Avardia. And he did a really good job on Channel 7 last night. And I don't think he meant to do a job on this particular woman whose, if brains were dynamite, she wouldn't blow her ears off. And she's the one that was given a platform on Sky News the other night to say, oh, well, you're in the Wingecarribee Shire. You don't need to wear a mask, when in fact the rule came out on the 26th of June. Everyone in New South Wales in a retail or indoors had to wear a mask. So Avardia last night was questioning her about, and she had all the opposition. Well, we don't need to have it down here in Wingecarribee Shire. And he produced on his computer, on his laptop. Have a look at that. Oh, well, it doesn't matter. They can't force. So all of a sudden, the argument went from we don't have to do it because it's not been ordered to Robert Avardia saying, well, here it is. It's in black and white, the order from the Premier, to, oh, well, we're opposed to masks. They're dangerous. I tell you what's dangerous. Lunatics like you, madam. That's what's dangerous. And you're the sort of person that's going to hold this all up. Along with St George Illawarra players who've got brains the size of a pea. And I appeared on NRL 360 last night, and there was an interview conducted with Paul Vaughan. And after it was over, in front of both Paul Kent and Yvonne Sampson, I read a statement. And they both looked at me thinking I was just repeating what had happened. Paul Vaughan, the mea culpa, I'm terribly sorry. I knew about all the rules. I shouldn't have broken the rules. It's a dreadful thing I've done. I've put the game at risk. I've put my teammates at risk. Blah, 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 blah. And they were thinking, why is he reading this again? He just said all that. And I looked at both of them and said, well, that was from August last year, guys. This is what he said August last year when he lied about going to a coffee shop and gave some false name so he wouldn't get sprung. Crocodile tears, they call it. I'll tell you why he's unhappy. He's unhappy he got caught, and it's cost him $800,000 or more. That's why he's unhappy about it, and most people would be unhappy about it in relation to the mea culpa. And then, of course, the added bonus of getting a Zoom meeting going with, or a WhatsApp Zoom meeting going with other players to concoct stories to make sure they were all on the same page when it came to lying to the integrity unit. Some of them saw the sense of not lying and told the truth. And then Jack de Belin stuck his head up and said, "Oh, I wasn't walking the dog." And I've been told apparently he wasn't hiding under a bed. He was hiding behind a couch. I mean, as one listener said to me yesterday, what was he doing waiting for the police to say, "Coming, ready or not," after counting 100? And the $42,000 fine levelled at him by the NRL should be the start. I think the St George Illawarra board did the right thing by the club in the game last night, or yesterday afternoon more correctly. But I think they need to take a very good long look at whether someone like Jack de Belin is within the culture of the club. He's been to hell and back for the last 2 years, with, of course, 2 hung juries over those very serious charges levelled at him. That's nothing to do with this. The DPP does not proceed at a third instance after 2 hung juries. You would have thought he would have just been thinking, I might just pull my head in here a bit and just, fly under the radar for a while. No, after the coach, Anthony Griffin, and others said on Friday night after the unbelievably lucky victory over the New Zealand Warriors, whatever you do, we've got a week off, just go home and relax. No sooner had the coach left the ground than they were all concocting the party at his place, led by Vaughan on Saturday night, in complete defiance of the public health orders, the NRL orders, and the orders of their own coach. If you think I have no sympathy for them, you'd be exactly right. Exactly right. And those who've been on social media overnight saying, you don't rat out mates and you do the rest of it, pull your head in. They're looking for wood. We're in a pandemic. And in relation to that, I mentioned to Ben a bit earlier, I got a note from someone who I won't identify, but this is a small business operator, a menswear store, who happens to be a Dragon supporter. He's disgusted with Paul Vaughan. I'm happy he's gone. Disappointed if another club picks him up. Does he understand what he's done to the club, the sponsors, supporters? And he hasn't apologised personally to us yet. On another point, my store's been closed, coming up for 2 weeks. Not a quid's come in the door. And so now we extend it for another week. I've got staff that I've got to try and keep on when we do eventually reopen. And these twits earn up to $800,000 a year and can't control themselves. Anyway, my thoughts today are with mums and dads and children. The children should be back at school next Monday. They should be back at school next Monday, and the Premier should make that announcement before Friday. She should revise it and say, OK, kids back to school, and there should be other restrictions lifted on small business. Can someone tell me, when I went shopping for provisions yesterday, as you're entitled to, with my mask on, I go to the local shopping centre, QR code, I do it. Half the people going past me don't do it. Most people, in fact all, have got masks on from what I could see. But you go in, that shop's open, that shop's open, that shop's open. Oh, the hairdressers are shut. Hairdressers are shut. That shop, that one's shut. That one's open. It's just indiscriminate. Can someone in health tell me why hairdressers can't be open? How many cases have there been apart from Joe Bailey's, which was most unfortunate, but in the normal course of events, how many cases of COVID have come to someone getting their hair cut or their hair done? I said perm the other day, and someone said, Ray, perm stopped happening about 20 or 30 years ago. I said, well, that's the last time I had my hair perm, probably. But, why can't hairdressers be open, Premier? Why is it arbitrarily this list of things? And why can't people lawn bowl? Golfers can play golf, and I'm happy because I'm a golfer. Why can't people have a roll up at the lawn bowls? It's just some of the rules. Now, I'm not blaming the Premier for this. They're made by public health people who probably think a lawn bowl rink is something you skate on. They probably think a football coach is something you travel on to get to a game. For God's sake, Premier, review the decision. Review the decision. Anyway, as I said, the board of the St George Illawarra Club had little option but to terminate the contract to Paul Vaughan after they confirmed this was the third issue, 2 involving COVID breaches, which I've documented. The third was a complaint from 2 years ago, about the same time that Jack de Belin was confronting the charges against him, about sexting a Canberra-based female. It was dealt with at the time, but it seemed to have been lost because it was about the same time the club was in crisis with charges being levelled against Jack de Belin. Anyway, in other news on that, I spoke to the Police Commissioner Mick Fuller last night, He says, despite denials, police are still investigating reports from people in the area, and there are denials. Paul Vaughan and others say there were definitely no other guests at the home. Well, Paul, I'd have to say to you, based on your history, mate, if you told me it was raining at Shell Harbour, I'd have to go outside and check, pal. Because, telling the truth seems to come really readily to you when you're caught doing something wrong, not before you do something wrong. There's a bit of a blow-up today about vaccines given by mistake to all Year 12 boarders at St Joseph's College in Sydney. Now, I have a bit of a drama with this. If you're under 40, you're not supposed to get vaccinated just yet, unless you're in special services or you come under some provision. So obviously, Year 12 students, being 17 or 18, aren't getting vaccinated. But there are many Indigenous students at St Joseph's College, and they're there because of the largesse of the college and because, some of them are really good footballers, some of them academically, no doubt, and some are good soccer players, but they come there from all parts of New South Wales, and because they come from regional areas, they're boarders. So the rule was made by New South Wales Health, if you're a boarder and Indigenous, you get the jab. Now, there's 163 young blokes there. I don't know how many Indigenous, might be 20 or 30 or 40, I don't know. But how would it look if the New South Wales Health came in and jabbed the Indigenous kids and said to the other kids, I'm sorry, you don't qualify? I don't think the Indigenous kids who are part of that school culture would be too happy about being the ones that got the jab when their mates didn't get the jab. And so someone at New South Wales Health said, you can all have the jab. And now they're jumping up and down saying, there's a mistake being made, it shouldn't have happened. Well, they're all kids. I don't care whether they're black or white. I mean, they're all kids, and they're in the same environment. So if you're going to protect the Indigenous kids, you've got to vaccinate all of them. I mean, and the Indigenous population we're talking about would be, I guess, country-dwelling Indigenous people who are at greater risk. But I don't think the Indigenous kids boarding at St Joseph's College are any greater risk than the white kids boarding at St Joseph's College. So it may have been a mistake, but at the end of the day, I think it's probably a mistake that was, not made deliberately, but I'm happy they made the mistake. I mean, it just seems some of the bizarre decisions taken during all of this just make me absolutely scratch my head in absolute amazement. This story broke yesterday. We didn't have time because we had a few other things on the plate yesterday. But a prominent female Liberal senator has tipped cold water over allegations made by a former MP that Coalition is rife with sexism, bullying and toxic behaviour, saying Julia Banks had been used by the Labor Party to attack the Coalition. Victorian Liberal Sarah Henderson told Sky News via Peter Credlin last night that the treatment of the former MP claims she experienced at the hands of the Coalition did not stack up. It doesn't account with my experience at all. Look, it's very simple. Julia Banks is absolutely filthy on Scott Morrison because she sensationally quit the Liberal Party after the 2018 ousting of Malcolm Turnbull. She moved from the seat of Chisholm in Victoria to Flinders, where she ran unsuccessfully as an independent against Greg Hunt. She's dirty on the place because they replaced, she was an acolyte and supporter of, and it's nothing to do with sexism or bullying, she backed the wrong horse. She backed the wrong horse. She thought he was Drew Barrier 1, he was in Barrier 8 in the field of 16. Turnbull, and he got outed, and she's been dirty ever since about it. And I'm glad that Sarah Henderson's calling out for what it is. I don't know whether the Labor Party could be actually bothered getting involved in that, but, I mean, for goodness sake, let's not reinvent history. Anastasia Palaszczuk, she still wants to go to Tokyo. And there's been more people in Queensland not supporting that than any other particular matter that's been the subject of, I guess, a vote by the public. But she's adamant she'll go. A defiant Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk says the Courier Mail says only a lockdown will stop her travelling to Japan to clinch the 2032 Olympic game. She's 100 to 1 on to get the games. It doesn't have to clinch it. It's a one-horse race. You can't get beaten, Anastasia. You can't. You're probably better off staying away. You might mess it up by going, love. Miss Palaszczuk, Brisbane Lord Mayor Adrian Schrinner and Federal Sports Minister Richard Colbeck are set to travel to Tokyo for the final grilling by the IOC. And the Prime Minister will be there via video link. Well, why don't they all do it via video link? But a growing number of people are pushing for the federal government not to grant the Premier her travel exemption, with the petition stating she should not be allowed to steal a precious hotel quarantine space, and so it goes on. I mean, do it via Zoom. Do it on FaceTime. Make it very personal. Contact the IOC president on your own FaceTime account and say, listen, we know we've got the job. We'll do a good job. Can we have it, please? And then you haven't got to go anywhere. Just still on Queensland, and they've got a bit of a sweat happening at the moment. A critical 72 hours will determine whether a cluster of the highly contagious Delta variant has infected 6,000 people locked in quarantine, or if Queensland has escaped a major outbreak. We'll have news of that through the course of the morning as well. You may remember that I spoke to the federal, of course, police commissioner yesterday. And we spoke to Reece Kershaw about this bloke, Adam Brookman. And he's in Melbourne. Now, he's been freed from jail short of his sentence because the Victorian government decided, because of COVID, it's a good idea to let a terrorist out. What a genius he is, Daniel Andrews. Let's let the terrorist out because of COVID. Anyway, Reece Kershaw was very concerned about this, and he wanted to appeal any decision. Anyway, he's now been told he must wear a tracking device, not leave Victoria, stay off social media, and as authorities fear he could commit a terrorist attack on Australian soil. The AFP successfully applied to have Brookman, 35, slapped with an interim control order on his personal freedoms in the federal court yesterday, and the federal court agreed with that, and for that the federal court should be congratulated. Sport today, and there's a fair bit of sport about to get through as well, most notably, of course, Wimbledon. Oh, by the way, Bulldog Richie's got an exclusive. Well done to Bulldog. In the Telegraph, he reports Newcastle will today be confirmed as the venue for the State of Origin. The third match, McDonald Jones Stadium, will host the big game Wednesday next week, an historic night for the Hunter. Well, of course, we are still in lockdown. So that means that the crowd will be 75%, which is around 23,000 people allowed in there, because it's in Newcastle, not in Sydney, of course, which is not in lockdown. You've got to wear a mask inside, however, in all parts of regional New South Wales. Continuous call team round 17. Tomorrow night, Manly take on Canberra. There'll be a score service coming in from Brookvale Oval there. Now, Friday night, the game will call South Sydney and North Queensland. I'll be, in fact, in the commentary position there. And then on Saturday, Mark Levy and the team will be there from 1 o'clock. There's a game later at night that I'll call, and that's Canterbury and the Roosters. And young Jamie Soward will be in the chair when Cronulla take on New Zealand with the call team on Sunday afternoon as well. Gold Coast forward David Fafita has been found guilty of a Grade 1 dangerous contact charge, so he misses one match, and that's the Origin. The Roosters forward Jared Warrior-Hargreaves has been found guilty of a Grade 1 contrary conduct charge for being involved in a melee, fined $2,500. Manly lost Tom Trebojevic and Daly Cherry-Evans to Origin for the clash with Canberra. They're without Josh Papali'i and Jack Whiten for obvious reasons. South Sydney have lost 5 players to Origin, including Latrell Mitchell for the match with the Cowboys, who've lost 3. James Tedesco, Angus Crichton missing from the Roosters side. They welcome back Victor Radley from suspension. And the Bulldogs have 5 players forced into COVID-19 isolation after they went to that Royal Hotel in Bondi. I read somewhere this morning that not only did they go there, that they didn't come to a training session the next day because they were too inebriated. Trent Barrett, you're a good young fella. Good luck. You're going to need plenty of it there, I can tell you. The Penrith player James Fisher-Harris has re-signed with the club for 4 more years, keeping at Panthers until the end of 2026. He's been going really well this year as well, that young bloke. Jared Sutton will referee the 22nd State of Origin match next Wednesday, breaking Bill Harrigan's long-standing record of 21. Ash Barty has beaten the fellow Aussie, Ayla Tomljanovic, in straight sets to move into the semi-finals of Wimbledon. The Commonwealth Super welterweight bout between Tim Zhu and Stevie Spark will be held in Newcastle tonight. The Wallabies face France for the first 3 test matches. Of course, that's happening at Suncorp Stadium in Brisbane tonight, apparently. And Italy has defeated Spain in the semi-finals of the Euros in a penalty shootout. Tomorrow, England face Denmark in the second semi-final at 5 a.m. That match, I just watched some footage on TV a minute ago. No social distancing there. They were hugging, kissing the Italians and carrying on like they'd never heard of COVID. Call me if you like, 131873. Email me, 2gb.com, rayhadley.com, 4bc.com.au. Podcast videos and program content by going to facebook.com/The Ray Hadley Morning Show. I'm Ray Hadley on 2GB, 2CC, 4BC, stations on the Capital Radio, Midwest Radio Grand Broadcaster, Resonate Networks and digital platforms. 17 and sunny in Sydney today, the same west and southwest, Penrith, Liverpool, Richmond, Parramatta, Campbelltown. Tomorrow sunny and 18. Rain on Friday, 15. Possible showers on Saturday, 18. And partly cloudy on Sunday, 18. For Brisbane, beautiful day in Brisbane today, and 21. And pretty much the same across that Brisbane region, extending out to Bow Desert, a bit out of Brisbane, 21. Ipswich, 21. Logan, 21. The airport, 20. The same as Wynnum, Manly, Redcliffe, Gold Coast and Sunshine Coast. A bit of rain, light rain tomorrow, Thursday, and 20. More rain on Friday and 21, sunny on Saturday 21 and sunny on Sunday and 21 degrees for Brisbane. For those regional stations with people listening to us on the various applications, Port Macquarie mostly sunny and 18, Kempsey sunny 19, Coffs Harbour sunny 19, Wagga there was a fog then a frost this morning 9, cloudy Griffith 11, Hay partly cloudy 13, Goulburn a fog and frost 11, the same for Cooma 11, Jindabyne partly cloudy 10 the top, Orange partly cloudy 10, Bathurst 13, Lithgow 11 the top, Bowral, Southern Highlands 11 the top, Canberra morning frost partly cloudy 11, Townsville partly cloudy 27, Gympie partly cloudy morning fog 21, and sunny in Rocky 4RO on the Grant Broadcasting Network there, and it's going to be fine weather in Rockhampton today. No new cases in Victoria, Let me go back last night. Robert Avadia went on the search of this woman from the organic shop in Bowral.
Victoria Kleberg is a retired nurse. She insists the mask-wearing mandate that led to her arrest and her husband's for resisting and hindering police is illegal because they are exempt.
It's been overwhelming. In many occasions, it's reduced me to tears because of the amount of support that we have had.
Formal advice on COVID-19 rules in New South Wales includes when to wear a face mask. You must wear a fitted face mask when you are in an indoor area of a non-residential premises in New South Wales. The first example given, retail or business premises that provide goods or services to members of the public who attend the premises.
Can I ask you where you found that document?
See, this is the New South Wales website. Are you suggesting that the law is unfair, or have you got it wrong?
We are fighting against our loss of freedoms.
Oh, yes. In other words, I was wrong. I didn't know there was a law making you wear a mask at my retail outlet in Bowral, you silly woman. 131873 is the open line number. Robert Avadia from Channel 7, well done. It's 26 to 10. It's good to have your company. 131873 is the open line number. 2gb.com, 4bc.com.au. I got a note from the Health Services Union in New South Wales. They've placed an indefinite ban on security office members entering the Nepean Hospital mental health unit for all circumstances except code black emergencies following 4 serious injuries at the facility in the last 6 days. I often talk to Gerard Hayes, the Health Services Union Secretary, when matters like this arise. He's on the line. G'day, Gerard.
Yeah, g'day, Ray.
What's happened over the last 6 days to your members?
Mate, I think what's happened is what we've been seeing over the past 2, 3, 4 years. So one member's got got fractured ribs, another one's got broken teeth, another one was unconscious, another one's got a fractured elbow. This is just, and then there's head injuries as well. So this is what happens when you turn up to work in a health setting to be able to support other colleagues, and they're all on workers' comp now. So it's a real major issue.
So what is a code black emergency? How does it qualify for some intervention?
So that would be if someone is incredibly violent and people are at risk, that these guys will make sure that their colleagues are safe along those lines. But there's a whole range of routine things that they get called to that they will not be doing. And it's interesting too because in the mental health unit, up until the 1st of July, they did have 2 security people there, and one has now been removed. So the less people you have, the more injuries you promote.
I'm just looking at what you've discussed. A member, Shane Brewer, June 30, 4 ribs fractured in emergency department after a random attack by a mental health patient. July 1, midday, Health Service Union security officer sustained a back injury while dealing with a highly aggressive male patient, mental health triage, now off work. July 4, at around 20 to 9 at night, HSU security officer suffered facial and dental injuries after being punched in the face by a male patient in the same unit. He's off work. And July 5 at 21:40, so 20 minutes to 10, 2 HSU security officers injured in the mental health triage and assessment centre dealing with an aggressive male scheduled patient. One officer sustained head injuries, was admitted to the emergency department and is now off work. Now, that's one angle, and your members need to be protected. But if there's only one person there, as you just disclosed to me, What about the doctors and nurses who are assessing these same violent people? What happens to them?
And this is, doctors, nurses, we've seen at Nepean and Blacktown Hospital, they get assaulted as well. Many times it's the security officers who will intervene first. But I'll just sort of remind you listeners that 2 years ago there was a shooting out at Nepean, and then the Anderson review came on the back of that, and that matter still hasn't been resolved. So, instead of proactively being able to engage, we are still waiting for outcomes of reports that are 2 years old over, shootings in hospitals.
So what's the answer to it if these indefinite bans are in place? I mean, I know that the health industry and the health minister's got a lot on its plate at the moment, but surely to goodness, and you and I have been talking about this for what seems to be years, the safety of not just your members as security officers, but also those who work in triage, be they doctors or nurses, they also need to be protected. And the only way they can be protected by having more security guards there.
It's that simple, Ray, and also the security guards should have the appropriate equipment to be able to defend themselves and defend others. Now, this should all be dealt with in the Anderson review. This should be delivered and it should be implemented. And we just don't want to see any more of the security people, visitors, patients, doctors, nurses injured because there's a report sitting on a shelf that could actually deal with these matters.
So more people. Now, when you talk about, and you and I have discussed this uphill and down Dale, whether they're given a taser or given some sort of, device that can protect themselves and protect the people there to protect. I mean, and you and I went through this, I think, at Royal Prince Alfred a few years ago. When two blokes got the tripe belted out of them, and we discussed it. Oh, no, the then minister, I can't remember who it wasn't Brad Hazard. Oh, no, you can't give them a baton, you can't give them a taser because someone might get hurt. And I said, well, there's two blokes in a hospital, and they're security officers defending a doctor and a nurse who were hurt.
That's right. You can't give them defensive implements, but you can give them a lifetime injury or a career that just stops because they've done the right thing and done the right thing by the hospital. We keep seeing this consistently, and you're right. We've discussed this over and over again. There is still no movement. In the latest budget, there was money put into the budget, but no real outcomes to that. So it's a real problem that needs to be resolved. People need to have confidence that you can go to a hospital and be safe, not become a patient once you get there.
Okay, always good to talk to you, and we always come up with the same answer. Please do something, but it falls on deaf ears. Maybe the withdrawal of services may force someone to act before someone is actually, we are talking about serious injuries. You'd hate to think we'll have a death because of the inaction of the health department.
Unfortunately, mate, we've seen deaths in the past, and that wasn't enough to motivate some people as well. So the pressure will keep bearing, and I really appreciate your support in this matter.
Okay, thank you. Jared Hayes, Health Services Union, New South Wales Secretary. He said this: Nepean Hospital is treating security members like battering rams. What workplace deems it acceptable for multiple employees to suffer fractured ribs, head injuries, cracked teeth in the same location in the space of a week? Signing up to become a security officer should not mean you're a glorified punching bag. Clearly, there are not enough officers in the unit. We need urgent increase, fully qualified full-time security officers in the unit. Do we need someone to die before the ministry actually sits up and takes notice? One would hope not. 131873 is the open line number, 2gb.com. Click on the feedback icon. An old mate of mine, Mark Spud Carroll's on the line. What's happening, Spud?
Good morning, Ray. I'm a little bit shaky. I'm a little bit angry, actually. My gym, Spud's gym, it's in Foley. It is called Foley Street in Darlinghurst. They closed down the gym, not allowed to work out of a gym. So I moved my gym out the front. I moved it to the precise measurement. The council just come through then. They were doing a drive pass, and they seen the equipment. They wanted to charge me $350 per machine. I've got neighbours next door, opposite me, who actually have started training due to me being outside and saying how good this fresh air, trying to put a smile on someone's face. But I'm trying to run a bloody business here. I've now been closed down again. What council, I'm in Darlinghurst, so it'd be the city of Sydney. As I said to the guy, mate, the idea I got was out the front because there's what they call an F45 around the corner. They're using a public area. And I said to the bloke who owns the joint, I put my thumbs, I said, mate, well done. Even people have been walking past going, mate, what a bloody great idea. You're out, fresh air. And I better close down. I'm closed down again. I've got no bloody money coming through. I've got now a client. All my clients aren't going to be able to train. And his attitude was like dead set. His attitude, sure he's got a badge, but, mate, he can't go shutting down business. We're trying to make a dollar, mate. We've been now told we've got another week to wait. It's bloody tough out here, mate.
All right, Spud, leave it with me. Stay there. I know where you are. I'll get all the details. I don't know that I'll have much luck with Clover Moore, but someone in council may. In these extraordinary circumstances, in normal circumstances, yes, you can't allow these things to happen. Well, we're in very extraordinary circumstances at the moment. And you can hear it in his voice. He's a hardened former rugby league player. Tough bloke, Spud Carroll, almost at breaking point because his business can't operate. He can't put food on the table. He can't pay the rent. Unbelievable. 131873 is that open line number, 2gb.com, 4bc.com.au if you would like to join us. Charles says from Port Macquarie, amazing how clear the sound is listening to you on the net here in Port Macquarie. Welcome aboard, mate. It's 14 minutes to 10. Queensland listeners tell me, and one of them in particular, John, says about getting vaccinated under 40. My son's just booked in for AstraZeneca up here. He's 18. Despite what the, of course, Chief Medical Officer said previously about all this. 131873 is the open line number, 2gb.com, 4bc.com.au, if you would like to join us. You're sounding hypocritical today, says Scott from, where are you at, Granville. You've been banging on, we should follow the advice, wear a mask, get vaccinated, do the right thing, disagree with the advice, it's wrong. No, not about getting vaccinated. I'm fully for getting vaccinated. I'm fully for people wearing masks. What I'm saying is you've got to give businesses some light at the end of the tunnel and not just simply shut them down for another week. And there's got to be a revision of what businesses. So, Scott, I don't know what you're listening to, but maybe you could clean the wax out of your ears and you'd hear exactly what I said, not what you think I said. Just on the fact that some people can and some can't, one of my listeners who contacted me yesterday, Dan, keep up the good work regarding small business, especially hairdressers. I sent you that question yesterday regarding my wife. She's a mobile hairdresser. Wasn't positive for us, but I don't know how we can go and spend 3 hours in Kmart or other department stores, yet my wife can't work, or any other hairdresser that can't work with no income to support us. By the way, we're both fully vaccinated. Love the show. Dan, that's the inconsistencies we're talking about. Some are open, some are not, and there doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason why some are shut and some are not. It's 9 minutes to 10. One of our listeners from regional New South Wales says, husband fully vaccinated, I will be in 2 weeks' time. Why do we have the same restrictions placed on us as everyone else who's not vaccinated, even in regional parts of New South Wales? Well, it's a very good question. In the second hour of the program, I'll play a report from 9 News out of Melbourne, but with their UK reporter about what Boris has got in mind for the UK come the 19th of July. Basically, he's saying, look, there'll be no legal restrictions in place. It will be a matter of personal judgment. There'll be very few restrictions at all about congregating, going to restaurants, going to pubs, going out, meeting with family. There'll be no restriction on how many people can get together. Just it will be what it is. Strangely enough, in the same report, his chief medical officer says by the time we get to the end of July, we'll probably be seeing 50,000 new cases a day. And I think that what Boris Johnson is saying, look, we've got 86% with the first vaccine, 2 doses, 2 jabs is up to 64%. You don't get vaccinated, you run the risk of getting really crook with the virus. Get the vaccine, that's what he's saying. 4.5 minutes to 10. Ray, I got a relative return to Brisbane 6 weeks ago, due for his second AstraZeneca for the next fortnight, but is being told by the Brisbane medical practice he's not allowed to have it in Queensland because he had the first dose in New South Wales. Would that be true? Not sure if it's the direction come from Queensland Health or it's mixed messages. The answer is I don't know. I would have thought if you're getting AstraZeneca in any part of the Commonwealth, you can have your second dose, but we'll find out from Queensland Health for you and come back to you and get the answer you need. News comes up next.
Who's talking? Look who's talking. Ray's talking now. Now you're talking. Hadley's talking. Now nationally. To you and me, Ray Hadley. Tune in and see Ray Hadley. The best in talk back, you'll agree. Ray Hadley.
One local new case in the community up there in Queensland, just announced by the Queensland Government. We'll go to Anastasia Palaszczuk in a moment or two. One new local case detected in home quarantine. And no new cases in hotel quarantine, no new cases in Victoria either. Now, just a note from one of the medical professionals who sends me tips all the time. Can you please advertise this website for New South Wales listeners? It's service.nsw.gov.au/transaction/book COVID vaccination. Now, I'll put it on the website so you can get a link to it. service.nsw.gov.au/transaction/book-COVID-vaccination. Try it for yourself. Very easy to use, Ray. Now, you could mock it up as anyone, age 25, 45 or 65, and when you go in there, you'll find there's a vaccine available somewhere in Sydney within a 2-day time frame. Why isn't the government advertising this more widely? Keep up the good work. Well, the answer to the question is I don't know why they're not advertising it more widely. But if you're telling me that if you go in there and do a mock one, because I've already had my first vaccination and I'll try it and put whatever name you like in, it then leads you to where you can get vaccinated depending on your age. And it can happen very, very quickly. So thank you for that, Doctor. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Also, by going to that site, I might mention, it says book a COVID vaccination. You can get the vaccine now if you're 40 years of age or older in New South Wales, or match the eligibility criteria because of your job, health issues, or if you're caring for a vulnerable person. To get the COVID-19 vaccine, you've got to book an appointment by the Vaccine Eligibility Checker. COVID-19 vaccines are free for everyone in Australia, regardless of Medicare or visa status. Book your vaccination now. So if you're under 40, you can attempt to get there, but you'll need the support of your GP to declare that you need to be vaccinated now, as opposed to waiting until your age criteria comes into the possibility of happening. So we'll go through that. I might just go to Anastasia Palaszczuk now. While she's talking, I'll go and have a look and see if I can book in and tell you more about this process.
But it is a close contact of the 2 known cases that were in Tarragindi. So that's fantastic news and has been detected in home quarantine. So I think Queenslanders should be extremely happy with that news. I know we were at our meeting this morning, and I know that Dr Young is very pleased. So we have 49 active cases. We've had 16,336 tests in the past 24 hours. Again, that's an excellent result. And 14,961 vaccines were delivered yesterday. So once again, Queensland, great news. And remember, keep using that check-in app, keep wearing your mask, and if you are sick, make sure that you definitely go and get tested.
Okay, that's Anastasia Palaszczuk. That's good news. One case in the community detected in home quarantine. Now, back I go to this website that I'm directing you to via one of the medical professionals who's telling me that we need to go there. And it is, again, service.nsw.gov.au/transaction/book-COVID-vaccine. Now, if I go to it as I'm doing it now, and this is only for New South Wales listeners, obviously, you can get the vaccine now if you're 40 years of age or older, or match the eligibility criteria because of your job, health issue, or if you're caring for a vulnerable person. To get the COVID-19 vaccine, you must book an appointment via the Vaccine Eligibility Checker. So I'm clicking on that now. Answer some of the questions to check if you get COVID-19 vaccination now. If you're age 40 or more, you're eligible for the vaccination now. The questions will help you find a clinic. If you're 16 to 39, you may be eligible. The questions will help you find out if you are. Start. Let me see. What's your age? Okay, I'll put down here. Clickety-click. Next. Select your state. Okay, well, I'll just put that in. New South Wales. There I go. Next. Had your first dose? Yes, I have. Next. Did you have AstraZeneca? Yes. Or Pfizer? No, I had AstraZeneca, so that's fine. Do that. It says here, are you eligible for Medicare? Yes, I am. Next. You've already had the first dose, eligible for second dose, same vaccine, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So then I go down to the bottom, make a booking. So I'll make a booking now. My postcode, I'll put my postcode in. Okay, in it goes. Postcode, that's me. Okay. Enter the suburb or postcode. Use current location. Search. And then it comes up with various places that I can go to. Hang on a sec, I'll just put it in again. The old computer didn't take the first one. Here we go. Yeah, that's me there. Okay, search. There it comes now. It comes up with me and open now. Dural Family Medical Practice. Dural Medical Centre. Medical Centre at Round Corner. Round Corner Medical Practice. Galston Medical Centre. Cherrybrook Medical Centre. Open now, open now. And it says within 7 days, within 2 days, come now. There's one that's closed. Within 7 days, Kenthurst Medical. So it's very simple to negotiate. I've done that, in about, 2 minutes? So if you're in New South Wales, do as the doctor is suggesting. Go to servicensw.gov.au if you're over 40, and if you're between 16 and 39, go there as well. And you'll need a GP authorisation for that younger age to get where you want to go. So it's service.nsw.gov.au/transaction/book-COVID-vaccination. I said earlier we'll put a link, of course, on our website for you to go through that and find out exactly what's happening. 131873 is that open line number, 2gb.com, 4bc.com.au, if you would like to join us and have your say right here. Paul Murray just sent me a link from Sky News. Paul, I'll have a look at that on my phone in a minute. I'm sure it's something interesting, so thank you for very much. I did notice that Paul was a bit upset recently. We've got a commercial with what used to be called the Love God, Richard Mercer. And I think it's Richard actually doing the commercial. I forget what the commercial's for now. I'll try and find that, see if it's in the system, fellas, and we can play the commercial for our network listeners. But, of course, Paul, prior to him becoming a raging hot success on Sky News late at night, was a radio broadcaster. And, it's Uber Eats, that is. It's Uber Eats, an Uber Eats commercial. And Paul used to make appearances on my radio programs on the weekend with the continuous call theme as the Love Muscle. And used to give advice to all of us about how we should further our existence, so to speak. And the problem with it was that I think he sounded more like Richard Mercer than Richard Mercer did, the former Love God, on another radio station. But now he couldn't possibly be the Love Muscle because he's a serious commentator on Sky News. But I dare him one night to be the Love Muscle just for a short period of time to enlighten his listeners and viewers. 131873, 2gb.com, 4bc.com.au if you would like to join us. And it's 10:15. It's good to have your company. 131873 is the open line number, 2gb.com, 4bc.com.au. I was watching a current affair the other night and my attention was drawn to a story about a police officer by the name of Jason Taylor. And I mentioned this to Reece Kershaw when I had a chat with him a couple of days ago, the Commissioner. Now, Jason Taylor is now a former AFP Detective Sergeant. And it's a terrible, terrible story. The headline on the ABC website says, officer held in headlock by father of man he was arresting. Well, it wasn't a headlock, it was a chokehold. He tried to choke this officer to death. The story says an ACT police officer told a Canberra court he was terrified and feared for his life when he was attacked from behind during a routine arrest. The court heard police were called to Gungahlin in Canberra in January last year. Reports 3 men had been fighting near the shopping centre. This Detective Sergeant, Jason Taylor, told the court he saw Robert Reed, 38, walking along the street with another man with obvious facial injuries and broken teeth. The police officer said police pulled over, were talking to Reed, things calm until his son drove up. At that point, police decided to arrest Reed's son for drink driving. The court heard the younger man threatened his father, throwing his keys at him because he was being arrested. Body cam footage tendered to the court showed Reed lunging at the Detective Sergeant from behind, pushing him to the ground and holding him in a headlock. As I say, it was a chokehold. It was terrifying. The footage also shows police officers tasering Reed to end the attack. He pleaded guilty to the assault. Remarkably, when he was sentenced, despite his, attempt to murder the police officer, he was sentenced to a 20-month intensive corrections order. A remarkable story. Jason Taylor is no longer a police officer, but he wants other people to understand the trials and tribulations that go hand in glove with being a police officer in any jurisdiction. He's on the line. Jason, g'day.
Good morning, Ray. Thanks for having me, mate.
It's a pleasure, mate. I watched with some trepidation the footage that was aired on Channel 9, and then I had a look at it myself just to make sure I did see what I thought I saw. This bloke tried to kill you.
I don't think there's any doubt about that. Whether or not he intended to, it would have been the likely outcome if my colleagues hadn't intervened.
I heard you say during that report on a current affair, at one stage you even thought of drawing your weapon to save your life.
Yeah, it was an initial thought I had after after I realised I couldn't breathe, and I knew I was being choked. And, you know, I've said this in the court as well, is that that thought and the consequences that it would have had for him and for me and his family and my family is something that is very difficult to deal with. So I'm glad it didn't come to that.
This is two-pronged. It's about the sentence handed out, and I talk constantly on 2CC about the inadequate sentencing in the judicial system in Canberra, in the ACT. He was sentenced to a 20-month intensive corrections order, which is basically, you know, a slap on the wrist by any estimation.
That's correct. I mean, it's a disgraceful decision. I've navigated the frankly piss-weak judicial system here in Canberra for my entire career as a police officer. This was a different experience, experiencing it as a victim for the first time. And, I mean, there's not much more that I can say about that you haven't. You know, it's laughable if it wasn't so serious.
Well, I think people would understand your graphic language because it is a piss-weak judicial system in the ACT, which is run by left-wing zealots who tend to err on the side of the perpetrator, not those victims like yourself. So thank you for saying it. But I wanted to look at the broader issue, and I have an intimate interest in this, of PTSD. Mm-hmm. How long were you a police officer for?
Nearly 14 years.
14 years. Now, as you're there starting off your career, were you prepared for the sort of mayhem that you would encounter as a young police officer before you became a seasoned detective sergeant?
Absolutely not. You know, I'm from a very good family, good upbringing, just a normal life, and so being exposed to the other side of it, and seeing the worst that people will inflict upon each other, it was certainly eye-opening, and at times is incredibly difficult to deal with.
Someone explained to me once, when dealing with PTSD, either in your profession or in armed services and other areas, AMBOs, paramedics, the lot, that it comes a stage, and I don't know whether this is your case, where you have been subjected to the most horrific events, and that PTS is there, and then finally someone puts one more cup in the bucket and it overflows. Was that your case? Was it a gradual build-up, or this one just came out of the blue and that was it, you were gone?
No, absolutely. It's a very good analogy. I've used that one myself before. I'd certainly been suffering from a number of underlying issues for probably 5 or 6 years. And I liken what happened to me as not so much the last cup. It was that somebody came along and kicked my bucket over. The ironic thing about all of this is that I'd actually put my hand up a couple of days before this happened. I realised that there was something not quite right, and I was starting to struggle. And I put my hand up with a former colleague that I had who was working in welfare, just to sort of catch up with her at some point, just to discuss some things. And so I penciled something in for the following week, and then you know, old mate came along on the Friday, and then it just was very much a downhill spiral after that.
And without me being into your intimate details, obviously you've sought treatment. What sort of headspace are you in at the moment, individually? I'm
in a much better spot now. It still is a struggle, and I can speak for the many, many thousands of people that are suffering from this, is that every day is a battle. But I'm in a much better place now, obviously with psychological treatment and medical intervention, and probably, you know, the last 3 weeks having made the emotional decision to end my career, it'll hopefully help me go forward. I really do have my fingers crossed for that. Okay.
How's the sleep patterns? How do you sleep at night?
It's up and down. It's certainly better than what it was. There were a lot of times where I'd have some really vivid and quite horrific nightmares, to the point where I'd be afraid. to go to sleep. I still require medication of a night now to help me go. It's mild medication, but it's improving.
I just, and I hope you don't think I'm prying here, because I'm vitally interested in your own welfare and the welfare of your colleagues right across the country. I just share something that was related to me by another police officer. He tried to resuscitate a young girl who tragically took her own life. And while he was performing that resuscitation, her eyes were open and peering at him. And he used to wake up at night with the brown eyes peering into his face in a muck lather and a sweat, and it was something he could never erase. And the question he posed to himself on many occasions, if I'd just come there quicker, if I'd got there through that set of lights quicker, I may have been there 4 minutes earlier, I may have saved that girl's life. And that haunted that person, haunted them, to the extent that they couldn't sleep at night.
Yep.
Is that the sort of experience that rings true with you?
Absolutely. The policing, unfortunately, given what we deal with, is full of those sliding doors moments. And being the people that we are to actually do this job, you have to be that empathetic, caring person. And so these things will naturally have an impact on you, and it's cumulative. It's serious matters and horrific matters such as that, all the way down to, there's one that I think about often, was one of my early jobs as a constable, an 80-year-old woman and had her house broken into, and she'd been burgled, and it was the worst thing that had ever happened to her in her life, and she was beside herself. And so it's that cumulative, vicarious trauma that we deal with day in, day out, constantly. And it's not just once a day, twice a day. It's several times a day, and it really does take a toll.
Yeah, it's a terrible, terrible spot to be in. I wish you the best in the future, and I think probably, Jason, you're looking at helping other officers who are in a similar position to work their way through the difficulties that you've encountered in your 12-year career, and I commend you for doing that, and I want to thank you for talking to me with such clarity and honesty today.
Thank you, Ray. I really do appreciate your time.
Good on you, Jace. Well done, mate. Go forward, son, and good luck to you. Jason Taylor, a former AFP Detective Sergeant. I'm just thinking about other things officers have told me over the years. And I thought about that one I just shared with Jason. Another officer told me about arriving at, again, a self-harm incident in a backyard pool. And the person had attached a brick to part of their body and drowned themselves. And because there was some hope of the person still being alive, a senior officer said to this younger officer, dive in there and get that person out of there. The person had been in there, they didn't know, but they'd been there for quite some time, they were dead. And to try and drag that deceased body from the bottom of the pool with a brick attached to it is something that haunted that person for the rest of their career. And I'm sure there are coppers listening now who have other stories, horrific stories. But, we go to work, if we're lucky enough during COVID, every day of our lives, firstly with the sense we'll return home, with a sense that there'll be nothing too traumatic to deal with. Coppers don't have that luxury. Their husband and wives, their children, their parents don't have that luxury. They go to work, and one day, they dread it, there'll be a knock on the door by a senior officer to advise them that there's been an incident, and that officer might not be returning home. Something to ponder when you're giving it to the coppers who are trying to do the right thing during COVID, down there at, of course, Barrel, calling them pigs, or at Seven Hills, calling them pigs and launching into them because they're doing what they're supposed to do, protect and serve. And if you're confronting things that are troubling you, Lifeline, 13 11 14, 13 11 14. It's right on 10:30. Stephen's at Quakers Hill, Western Sydney. I've just contacted two medical centres here in Quakers Hill, trying to get vaccinated. Both only have AstraZeneca available. Both advised I'm under 60. I need to consult my doctor before having it. Neither of these centres had any idea as to when they'd be receiving Pfizer. Well, yes, that's true. That's what the Prime Minister said. If you are wanting AstraZeneca and you're under that age, well, you need to consult your doctor. So talk to your doctor, mate, and get some sort of certificate to say that you've been explained the minimal risk, and as a result of that, you're happy to have AstraZeneca. There you go. 131873 is the open line number. 2gb.com, 4bc.com.au. Darren's in North Turramurra, Sydney. I need some help. I've scheduled to play golf at the Vintage Golf Resort next Thursday. I'm allowed to travel there from Turramurra and return same day. Darren, you are not allowed. According to the Premier this morning, she'll confirm what she's told the media overnight. We're in lockdown, according to her, until next Friday, meaning the golf day at the Vintage is off, old son, if you're in Turramurra. 131873, 2gb.com, 4bc.com.au. Daniel's at Schofield, Sydney. Both my wife and I, aged 28, 31 respectively, received our Pfizer vaccine because I was autoimmune disease. An option on the booking form online. No need to show anything from a doctor to support this. Easy to book. Well, that's the same one we're talking about. Good on you, Dan. Robin's at North Turramurra. She said, Ray, possibly trivial compared to a lot of other problems. As a lady who's been having her hair done for almost 40 years, we're all doing the right thing to get through this stressful time. Please ask the Premier to open the hairdressers. It does help on morale to have the hair done and look in the mirror and feel somewhat normal. Trivial, yes, I know, but, just helps. I'm sure there were many ladies like you that would like to do it. In fact, someone commented to me before I went on 360 last night, I was looking like a cross between Des Hasler and Ivan Cleary. And that's just our lot. I normally have a haircut every couple of weeks, but I haven't had one now for a month, getting a bit shaggy around the edges, but there you go. 131873, 2gb.com, 4bc.com.au. Matthew, g'day.
Hello, Ray. How are you?
Good, Matt. What's happening?
Just after your conversation with the young policeman, I just wanted to expand on that a little bit to say that my experience is not the same, but I'm a Iraq veteran, 10 years in the Air Force. My career ended once I put my hand up and asked for help after a personal crisis, and yet now I'm watching my son, who was a soldier for 8 years. He's just become a policeman, serving his first 3 months in Alice Springs. And my daughter's just graduated as a paramedic. So as extremely proud as we are, we're absolutely beside ourselves with what they're going to confront over their careers.
Well, Matthew, that's a very sensible comment you made. And may I start by thanking you for your service, as I do with all servicemen and women. And
thank you.
I think that every parent, when their child, male or female, enters service, as your daughter has as a paramedic, and she'll confront some horrible things, and the young bloke in Northern Territory, equally horrible things, and you just hope that they can be equipped and supported to get through that. But having been through what you've been through, I can understand your reservations. But you love them, you're proud of them, as we all are, but you just are worried about them.
Very worried, because I know what they could confront. I've gone through it myself, and it's the most terrible thing to struggle through. And the thought of having to watch my kids go through this at some point is just horrific.
Well, we know one thing, mate. You'll be there standing beside them. Good on you, Matt.
Thank you very much.
God bless you, mate. 131873 is that open line number, 2gb.com, 4bc.com.au. Now, that weather in the Resonate Radio Network, Charters Towers partly cloudy and 27, Cunnamulla mostly sunny and 17, Kingaroy sunny 19, Charleville sunny 19, Mount Isa sunny 26, Longreach sunny 24, Emerald sunny 23, Roma Wallumbilla after a morning frost it'll be sunny there and 19, Dalby sunny and 19, St George mostly sunny after a frosty morning 18 and sunny in Gunda windy and 19 degrees. I found that commercial for Uber Eats and the Love God.
Late night dedications with Carl Gray. Tonight, I'll be eating this special little number, a spicy Thai green curry. And it goes out to a guy named me. Order with Uber Eats tonight.
There's a free one for you, Uber Eats. That is, we believe, Richard Mercer. Not some impersonator like, a cheap impersonator like Paul Murray pretending to be him or pretending to be Bob Carr. And see, it's one of the things that people don't understand when they see Paul, rousing on politicians on late night Sky News and doing it very successfully, that perhaps he's hiding his light under a bushel because he's a wonderful impersonator. He does a whole range of people. I do mean a whole range of people, even people that he does currently work with, although he's quite reluctant to do those impersonations for obvious reasons. Paul. 131873 is that open line number, 2gb.com, 4bc.com.au. Why go through the drama, I don't know why I'm reading this one after talking about you, Paul, of buying toilet paper at the supermarkets when you can actually have it delivered to your front door? Cheeky is an innovative all-Australian company selling premium toilet paper online. Now, if to pay more for less, Cheeky toilet rolls have 360 sheets per roll, with the supermarket rolls containing only 180. That is Cheeky. Cheeky is also cheaper than most of the supermarket brands as well. 27 cents per 100 sheets. That's Cheeky. Cheeky pride themselves on their environmental credentials. Unlike all the imported brands, they provide a 3-day delivery service to the Greater Sydney and Brisbane regions and regional Australia as well. It goes via Australia Post, so it may take a bit longer than perhaps it should because of restrictions on postage at the moment. And don't forget, if you've got a nan or a pop or an elderly uncle or aunt, family member, and they can't get it as often as they can, particularly in the Sydney area at the moment, well, you can send them some Cheeky. Cheeky.net.au. Buy all Australians, support Aussies without the supermarket craziness of people getting there and cleaning out the shelves. Cheeky.net.au. Cheeky.net.au. There are 2 ways to buy it, the 24-roll pack or the 48-roll pack, and it's more effective to get the 48 rolls because it's cheaper with no postage and handling. That's cheeky.net.au. Cheeky.net.au. It's 20 minutes to 11. Well, I just said that we had, of course, the Love God doing Uber Eats commercials now, and it's a good commercial.
Late night dedications with Carl Gray. Tonight, I'll be eating this special little number, a spicy Thai green curry, and it goes out to a guy named me. Order with Uber Eats tonight.
Now, for those who don't understand, the Love God is a bloke called Richard Mercer, a very talented broadcaster who used to do a program many years ago, over a long period of time, where he did love song dedications, where young men and young women, and sometimes older men and older women would ring up and tell their story, and the Love God in that inevitable fashion would guide them through the song they wanted to hear. I know that some young rugby league players used to like taking the mickey and would ring up and wish people in Long Bay Jail or Park Lee their very best wishes. That led, of course, to the Continuous Call team having our very own equivalent to the Love God. He's known universally as the Love Muscle. Love Muscle, good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Ray. It's lovely to be on the program again. I want to say good morning to yourself and all of those wonderful listeners. It's been such a long time since we spoke, but I think it's time to say publicly that I was the lucky bidder on your home there in beautiful northwestern Sydney. I was surprised that you had 3 saunas, but that's your business.
Love, will you, Mr. Muscle, will you use all saunas? Will you use all 3 saunas when you do arrive here?
Oh, I have no doubt. What I'm most looking forward to about taking over the Hadley estate is being able to, dare I say, class up the joint a little bit. Personally, I think it's a little bit weird that there's a photo of you in every room here, but that's okay. We'll replace those with some beautiful life-size busts of myself and other wonderful broadcasters over the years. Now, also, Ray, I must say, since last we spoke, I know that the flicker of love has turned into a bushfire of desire, a new marriage, a beautiful relationship. And I tell you what, there's a few signs of it around the house. Goodness me, dents in the kitchen, dare I say.
You are stark raving mad.
Thank you. And I should say, by the way, my broadcasting career is still going from strength to strength. I think last time we spoke, I was at Coles Radio. But thankfully, I have now got a new syndicated program, which is available through the Go Woke, Go Broke series of hospices, which are being set up in North Queensland. So if you would like to die, but die with a special tingle in your heart, then go woke, go broke before you croak.
I wish you could make an appearance on the Paul Murray live Sky News program Sunday to Thursday at 9 p.m. I really do wish you could.
Well, so do I. That man is quite a hoax. He's an endless disappointment, a constant failure, and I'm just talking about his skills as a lover.
You don't have Bob Carr, the former New South Wales Premier, handy, do you, just to have a chat?
Of course. I'll just patch you through, Ray.
Good to see you. Good to see you. Well done. Congratulations to you, Ray, on yet another successful radio ratings. I understand that you have really put 2CH in its place. You've taken them out of the survey and put them where they belong, on DAB. And I don't mind a bit of dabbing every now and then. I remember at the Berry Street Tavern just before I hooked up with Helena. I remember wearing the tightest pair of jeans you've ever seen and the most exquisite pink singlet. It was a wonderful ensemble, as we used to call it. Myself and then Treasurer Michael Egan. Oh, we used to, dare I say, rip ass back then. Good to see you.
On that note, former Premier, I'll see you later.
Good to see you. You know it only gets filthier from here. Good call, Ray.
Oh, you got to laugh. It's been too serious. Oh, dear, oh, dear, oh, dear. Oh, dear. I should tell you that was actually Paul Murray, who appears on Sky News as Paul Murray Live. I know you'll find it hard to believe that the bloke that's there ripping and tearing from Sunday to Thursday night, giving everyone a pasting, is one of the great mimics in the entertainment industry. He's very, very talented. Have we got that call, the Bob Carr call of the grand final there somewhere? Oh, yeah. This is something he did for me quite a number of years ago.
Good to see you, Gibbers. It's the grand final of 2004. There's 23 left on the clock. 13, 12. The Roosters, great employers of young New South Wales people. Bulldogs scrum feed with just 30 metres out in front of the posts. Blocker, for your own safety, strap on that seatbelt. Strap it on, my friend. You mustn't touch the set. You mustn't touch the dial. Do not go anywhere. The ovicular object is passed from one person in blue and white to another in blue and white. This version is El Mazrai. He's a wonderful performer. He scores a try. Wonderful. What a moment. What a great time to be an investor in New South Wales. The feeling is golden. Make no mistake, it is a try.
Life's not the same without Bob Carr as Premier in New South Wales. They were wonderful times. Diane is online. Hello, Diane.
Hello, Ray. I'm really nervous because it's Ray, the people's champion. Ray, yes, I love you. I absolutely love you. And Love Muscle's got it all going on this morning. Absolutely hilarious. But anyway, listen, cheeky. I got my cheeky 48 rolls in 2 days, and it's fabulous stuff.
So you did what we told you to do, cheeky.net.au, and you got it in 2 days.
I did, and it's brilliant. And we have a small business, so we love to support Australian small business because you're supporting a dream, Ray, when you do it.
Well said. Diane, God bless you for supporting Cheeky. It is an Australian business, and they used to supply their toilet rolls to commercial practices, but that went west when commercial practices started to close up from working in the office and people working at home, so they decided to go into basically servicing the public, and that's what they've done through this program. So, Diane, thank you for buying Cheeky. It is an Australian company, and the paper is from Australia as well, which is particularly important. 131873 is that open line number, 2gb.com, 4bc.com.au. Someone suggested to me we need to hear that George Strait song in honour of those police officers. We'll do that in the next hour of the program, I can assure you. We'll do that. And to all the people who've said the same thing, having heard our discussion a bit earlier with Jason Taylor, thank you. It's very important that you support policemen and women because they make the difference. No matter where you're listening across the country, without the coppers, we're buggered. We have anarchy. And it's very important you support them. Ray, young Jason, very impressive. His pain and trauma is still very real, obviously. Yeah, Greg from Townsville's on the same page as me. Way to the badge, George Strait, surely. We'll do that in the final hour of the program. Another one. Listen to Jason, the police officer, PTSD. I've been in the New South Wales force for 25 years. I'm going through the same sort of thing now. There is a charity called The Merge. They're to help police in similar circumstances. I found them to be awesome. Another one, a female ex-cop discharged medically unfit after 20 years. Chronic PTSD, anxiety, depression. Avid listener, thank you. If only those nightmares would go away. And finally, wonderful interview with a very brave and courageous young fella, indebted for his service, wishing you, Jason, every success in the future and much happiness, of course, in your life as well. Well said indeed. 131873 2gb.com 4bc.com.au. And here's another one just come in from Chambers Flat, Queensland. Well done for the interview with a young fella, PTSD. My son's a serving police officer. The stories he tells me, horrific. He and his partner had a win the other night when working with paramedics on a young man who had no heartbeat. They brought him back. Not many good outcomes. This time it was. Thanks for your long-term support of emergency services. Good on you, mate. Well said. Well said indeed. Yeah. Horrific stories. The one thing I noted in your email, you say that he shares those stories with you. That's particularly important, to encourage those young men and women to share the stories with either their husband, their wife, their mum, their dad. Talk to someone about it. There's a house fire at Longville, two-storey home on fire in Detman Avenue. 24 firefighters battling the blaze as I speak. Now, the blaze, the call came through about 30 minutes ago. No reports of anyone inside. Yet to be confirmed. Yet to be confirmed. So, house fire Longville, a two-storey home on fire, Detman Avenue. 24 firefighters on the scene. Avoid the scene if possible. The All Ords is basically saying the same. It's up 0.24 of 1%. 7,549.4, $1 Australian dollar buying 74.88 US cents. 74.88 US cents. And just repeating, the house fire Longville for listeners on 2GB in Sydney, a two-storey home on fire, Detman Avenue, with 24 firefighters battling the blaze. We don't think anyone's inside. There you go. 131873, 2GB.com, 4bc.com.au. It's 5:30 to 11. I'm hearing we'll hear from the Premier of New South Wales, Gladys Berejiklian, after the news in a couple of minutes. 28 cases in New South Wales, 28. Now, the most important thing out of that is how many of the 28 cases are linked to other cases. Yesterday they couldn't find 2 out of 18. Let's see how many they go today with 28. Can they link them all? Now, just on the website I've checked, local government areas in New South Wales, there's not one case in regional New South Wales. Bayside 15, Blacktown 2, Burwood 2, Camden 7, Campbelltown 8, Canada Bay 6, Canterbury Bankstown 26, 2 on the Central Coast, not regional, just provincial really, 10 Cumberland, which is Western Sydney, 16 Fairfield, 18 Georges River, 1 Hunters Hill, 1 Inner West Council, 1 at Ku-ring-gai on the north side, 26 at Liverpool, southwestern Sydney, and then 7 at Parramatta, 39 at Randwick, eastern suburbs obviously, Ryde 1, Strathfield 10, 24 in the city of Sydney, 12 in the Hillshire, and then 61 Waverley, where it all started, and 17 Wallara. But as I look down, 3 Willoughby, by the way, there is not one case at the moment in regional New South Wales, not one case in regional New South Wales. Perhaps there's a sign there should be an easy restrictions in regional New South Wales. If you're going to quarantine Sydney and lock it down for another 7 days, regional New South Wales, not one case anywhere. That game that's being played involving South and North Queensland, they're going to play it in Newcastle. They can't get the North Queensland players into Sydney and back into Brisbane, so it'll be played as the Origin will be next Wednesday. News comes up next.
Everybody, it's time for talking. Ray Hadley, he's happening in the morning. That's the place where you can have your say. Good morning, listeners. Have yourself a Hadley day. Ray Hadley. Ray Hadley day. Ray Hadley. Ooh, yeah. Ray Hadley.
And welcome back. Good to have your company. 131873 is that open line number. Now it's one short of what I said. It's 27 cases in the community, not 28 as I indicated. 18 linked to an existing case or cluster, 7 household contacts. The source of infection for 9 cases remains under investigation. Now that's the bad figure. Yesterday it was 2, today it's 9. That's not good news. Of the 27, 13 have been in isolation for the infectious period, 7 have been of a part of it. 7 have been infectious in the community. There are 45,000 tests yesterday, up from 32,000 the previous day. Let's go via Sky News to Gladys Berejiklian right now.
Good morning, everybody. Can I thank the 45,000 people throughout our state who were tested in the last 24 hours, and please stress moving forward how important it is for us to get those high rates of testing. We're grateful for that. Dr. Chant had said she wants to see at least the 40,000 number figure continue, and obviously higher rates in those communities we're outlining today are also extremely essential. Overnight, New South Wales had 27 cases of community transmission. Unfortunately, only 13 of those were already in isolation. 7 were in isolation for part of their infectious period, and 7, we understand, were in isolation for all of their infectious period. Now, they're the numbers we're looking at when it comes to determining the length of the lockdown, and that's why the New South Wales government, based on the health advice, which is our key indicator, made the difficult decision to announce the extension of the lockdown and the existing restrictions in the regions for 1 week further until Friday midnight, the 16th of July. Now, the reason for this is, as we've been saying, this Delta strain is a game changer. It's extremely transmissible and more contagious than any other form of the virus that we've seen. The reason why the New South Wales government has taken this position is because we don't want to be in a situation where we are constantly having to move between lockdown, no lockdown, lockdown, no lockdown. What we want to do is give us our best chance of making sure this is the only lockdown we have until the vast majority of our citizens are vaccinated. We know the vaccine is the key to our freedom. The vaccine is key to saving lives and keeping the economy open. We appreciate and understand the stress this means for individuals, for families, and of course for businesses. But what would be far worse is being in a situation where you have to live in and out of lockdown until that period of time when we have the vaccine available to us. That is not a way to live, and we want to give our citizens the best chance of staying safe and healthy, but also making sure our businesses survive and thrive moving forward until that vaccination period is upon us. And that is the context why we made this decision. Every time we make a decision in the pandemic, it's twofold. It's, yes, to keep our citizens safe and healthy, but it's also to give our businesses the best opportunities moving forward. And we know what businesses need is certainty, and what they don't want is a prospect or a future where we're constantly moving in and out of lockdown. And that is the context for the difficult decision we made. Now, in relation to schools, obviously schools outside of the Greater Sydney region, schools in the regions will resume face-to-face learning from next week, which is a great result, and we're really pleased that there hasn't been any instances of the virus in regional New South Wales. I want to thank our regional communities for their patience. We have had a few false alarms or a few close calls in the regions, but the community has responded by coming out and getting tested, by isolating, and also, can I say to regional communities, thank you for alerting police and Crime Stoppers when people from Greater Sydney have been coming into your community. You have defended your communities, and we're really grateful to you for that. In relation to Greater Sydney, the reason why we took the decision around schools not resuming face-to-face learning next week is not because schools aren't a safe place. They are a safe place. But what we really need to do in Greater Sydney is reduce mobility. We need to stop literally hundreds of thousands of adults moving around and interacting with each other inadvertently as they drop kids off, pick kids up at those usual times. And whilst the virus is more contagious in children, or this strain is, than we've seen previous strains, our main concern is too many people being mobile at the same time and having those interactions. So it's really, really important for people to reduce their mobility. In relation to online learning, I wanted to make the following points. Of course, those parents who are doing essential work, who have no option, children are welcome on the school ground. So as we did last time, the children of essential workers, children who have no other option, or parents who have no option, of course, children will be welcome onto the school grounds. That's what we did last time. And the Education Department and Health have also been speaking to reduce any stress or issues related to Year 12 students. If Year 12 students have practical examinations or need to be on campus for those rare occasions when that face-to-face is essential, the Department and Health are working together on those issues. So we don't want any parents, or I should say students, but also parents, to feel any level of angst that their child will be prevented, especially in relation to practical type exams associated with trials in certain subjects. But we trust our school communities and health to continue to work closer together. They have for a long time, and we anticipate that to going forward. And when you think about it, I know how difficult it is. I hear from friends and family, homeschooling, home learning is difficult, but it's for 4 days. And let's all pull together and do our best during those 4 days, and I appreciate how hard it is. All of us have different circumstances. Everybody is touched by this. Everybody doing the right thing is suffering, and please know that we get that, completely get that.
Okay, we'll leave it there. That's the Premier, Gladys Berejiklian, explaining why. And I think I've got further news as to why she's gone into a lockdown period until tomorrow, Friday week rather. They've got these stats coming through. Now, we're at 27 today. And the most concerning part of the 27 is that they don't know where 9 of them came from. So they can trace 18, basically. 18 are linked to existing cases or clusters, but they don't know where 9 have come from. Now, I'm tipping tomorrow it'll be a big increase in cases. I'm not suggesting 50 or 60, but I think it'll be way more than 27. And the reason I say that, they've got very concerning stats in from Fairfield, Liverpool and Canterbury, southwestern Sydney. And what they might have to do is think about this. Remember what they did with the Northern Beaches? They shut it down, the Northern Beaches, before Christmas. They might have to shut down those local government areas, being Fairfield, Liverpool and Canterbury. Now, they don't want to do that. They don't want to go to the next stage about not leaving the house unless absolutely necessary, but they may well, depending on how big the figures are tomorrow. So the figures in those 3 areas, unfortunately, are growing exponentially. So we need to take that into account, I guess, in making the decision. Look, she said 4 days. I think Monday's a pupil-free day anyway, so she's saying get through Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday with the kids at home. Unless you are stuck and they've got to go to school, they will be welcome on the school ground, she said. As far as rural New South Wales is concerned, there's no worries. No, there has not been one case in rural New South Wales. Sean says, I'm under the AstraZeneca cut-off age. I looked up the risks, rang up Monday to get the AstraZeneca 2 hours after the signing the waiver. I had it in my arm. All good. Let's get back to living properly. Good on you. Well done, Sean. Hope you're well and stay well. Look, that piece from Paul Murray is hilarious. I could barely sit on my lawnmower. Says one listener. Well, he's a funny man, and it's always good to hear from him. And I think in these circumstances, good to have a bit of a laugh from time to time. And that's exactly what we did. One of my listeners, Shane, says, "How up there in Butterham, how can I look at Paul tonight with a straight face? Absolutely brilliant. Incredibly funny and talented," says Dawn. The love god. Rael worked in commercial radio for 20 years making ads. The person voicing the radio ad is the great voiceover actor Robbie McGregor, the SBS voiceover guy. The real love god is living in the Blue Mountains. Richard misses radio. Commercial radio could do worse than to recognise the commitment and legacy of the radio industry. Well, I would agree with that, Robert. Thank you. But there you go. It's actually Robbie McGregor who's doing the Uber Eats ad, not the love god, Richard Mercer. Thank you. Mark says, yes, barely steer my lawnmower straight. Providing a highlight of the day, it was nice to have a bit of a laugh. Big fan of Paul's, love him. Last night's show hilarious, watching him impersonating the Queensland Premier, of course. Good to hear him again. Good to hear you. Brad says at Picton, listening to Paul Murray impersonating Bob Carr and the like, need more of that comedy these times. It makes you laugh, and we needed a laugh, didn't we? David, Glenmore Park, I ordered 2 Aussie hoses for our new house, also got a clothesline off them. They asked where did I hear it, I told them you. Well, that's good, mate. I'm glad the advertising's working. It helps pays the bills. 131873 is the open line number, 2gb.com, 4bc.com.au. We needed that laugh, says Georgia. But re-police. We need to educate our young as to the service, dangers and duty to community that our police force and first responders, of course, do. Respect and honour them. They're the backbone of our community. We need more people to talk about the work of police as you do regularly. Well, I said I'd do this in the final hour. It's George Strait talking about the weight of a police badge. Weight of the badge, 131873 is the open line number, 2gb.com, 4bc.com.au. George Strait it is. It's 22 minutes past 11. Beautiful song, one of my favourites from George Strait. It is a beautiful song. Thank you very much for enjoying it as much as we did. One of my listeners said, I want to give a shout out to Engadine Bowling Club for the welfare call I received yesterday from their staff member Caroline. Caroline simply asked how is it going. She'd been asked by management if she could come in and call members of the club to show they cared during the COVID lockdown just to check on our welfare. It was a love job for Caroline, which made me think that the local club really does care about their members. Well done to Engadine Bowling and Recreational Club and to Caroline for their support of members and guests with just a simple phone call. That's lovely. 131873 is that open line number, 2gb.com, 4bc.com.au if you would like to join us. Clinton Maynard, the 2GB 9 radio reporter, has been to that media conference that we took part of with Gladys Berejiklian earlier. He's got more news. Clinton, what can you tell us?
Ray, good morning. The Premier is now taking questions, and I have some very serious news for people in 3 local government areas. They are Fairfield in particular, Liverpool and Canterbury Bankstown, particularly around the Bosley Park area. There will be a surge in cases announced tomorrow. So we know today 27 cases. The Premier has warned, based on the figures that they now don't release post 8 p.m. last night, there will be a significant increase. She has gone as far as to say that people in those 3 local government areas should not leave the home, and they should minimise any reason to leave the home, even for those essential reasons like go to the supermarket. She made the point that we all should have enough in our cupboards now to last a month, given the run on supermarkets in the last couple of weeks. And she said that is critical to avoid, and I quote her, Ray, avoid the next step. So we are already in lockdown effectively, or maybe it's a fake lockdown in some respects, but there will be further restrictions if this outbreak in the southwest of Sydney, particularly around Bosley Park, is not contained. Now, there's no further details yet about which particular venues this impacts. We know there's the Commonwealth Bank at Roselands that you mentioned at the start of the program. We'll get more details, I'd suggest, in the next 24 hours. The other point that has been made clearly by Kerry Chant today, and this is why this lockdown is being extended, is she now has statistics that show that this is affecting people in a very serious way who are not elderly. So there are currently 37 people in New South Wales hospitals with COVID. 7 of those people are in ICU, 2 under ventilation. But of those 37 people, 14 are under the age of 55, 8 of them are under the age of 35, and one of the people who is in an intensive care unit is under 30, Ray.
Yeah, look, I mentioned when I first got this news about Fairfield, Liverpool, Canterbury, that there may be the same sort of restriction placed on those 3 LGAs as there were on the Northern Beaches before Christmas. Is there an indication? I know she said at the moment she's requesting people not leave the premises in those LGAs, Fairfield, Liverpool, Canterbury, Bankstown. But if these figures are as bad as you're suggesting tomorrow, and we can only imagine that it's far worse than 27, and that, you know, if it's 50 or 60 or whatever it may be, that she may look at that tomorrow by putting those LGAs in lockdown. How you police it, Northern Beaches was easy because it's a peninsula, basically, but it'll be a bit more difficult, Fairfield, Liverpool, Canterbury, Bankstown, I imagine.
She's taking questions on this now, Ray, and she's not giving too much away yet. But she was very clear in saying there will be a next stage, unless there is an improvement in what is obviously a major increase in figures now. So that'll, I'd suggest, be determined in the next 24 to 48 hours. But she seemed genuinely very concerned about what was happening in that part of the world.
Okay, thanks, Clinton Maynard, our reporter there from the media conference. So the local government areas are Fairfield, Liverpool, Canterbury, Bankstown. Now, what they do, they lock off the figures at 8 o'clock last night, but then they get the figures through after 8 o'clock until basically before she started the media conference 30 minutes ago. And that means that they've collated material which would suggest that many more people have tested positive in those 3 local government areas. being Fairfield, Liverpool, Canterbury, Bankstown. Now, while it was not easy but achievable to lock off the Northern Beaches because it's a peninsula, there's a couple of ways in and a couple of ways out. That's not the case with these three areas. Fairfield, Liverpool, they're vast areas in southwestern Sydney, extending from the edges of the city all the way out as far as you can go before you hit Campbelltown. And then edging onto the Cumberland area for Fairfield, the Cumberland Council area as well. So exactly what she does, I don't know. But the interesting figures coming from Clinton Maynard there. When I last reported this, we had 26 people in hospital. We've now got 37. We've got 7 of the 37 in intensive care. 2 of the 7 are on ventilators. Now, the figures he gave me, 14 are under 55, 8 of the 37 are under 35, and 1 person under the age of 30 is in ICU. 1 person in intensive care is under 30. Now, what we've said about the Delta strain before, the variant, is that we've been saying, based on evidence we have, that while it's far more transmissible, far more contagious, when you get it, you don't get as crook. And I've had a few emails this morning from people saying, well, look, you're not getting as crook. It's a bad dose of the flu. Why are we locking things down? Well, with the flu, you don't often get 7 people in ICU and 8 of them under 35 in hospital and 1 on a ventilator under the age of 30. So they might have to vary their advice because everyone's been singing from the same hymn sheet across the world, saying the Delta variant, far more contagious, but it's not as, it doesn't have a bigger impact on you when you get it. In other words, you don't get as crook. Well, that flies in the face of the figures that have been released this morning. 37 in hospital, 7 in intensive care, 2 on a ventilator of that 7. So 5 in ICU, 2 on ventilators, 7 in ICU, 2 on ventilators, 14 under 55, 8 under 35, and 1 of the ICU patients is under 30, which is a grave concern, targeting younger people, so to speak. So I guess we've got to wait and see what happens tomorrow. In the meantime, in the midst of the crazy world, Jason says from Northern Beaches, I'm hoping you can find the time to wish my darling mother, Jeanette, a happy 77th birthday. Big fan of the program. She's the humble matriarch of our family, husband to William, mother to Jason, Joshua, grandmother to Jackson, Tyler, and mother-in-law to Dana. A die-hard Manly supporter too, Ray. Tommy Turbo's her favourite. Well, Tommy Turbo's out this weekend, of course, because he's on Origin duty. So you'll get to see him next Wednesday up there at Newcastle, McDonald Jones Stadium, but you won't see him this weekend playing for Manly. It'll mean a lot to her. Well, happy birthday to you, my dear. Jeanette, happy birthday from all the family, everyone here connected with the Ray Hadley morning program as well. Vanessa said from Glenning Valley, I watched you on Fox last night. I wanted to say everything you said, I couldn't agree with more. The players only sorry they got caught. The sheer arrogance of the players makes me sick. Keep up the great work, says Ray. Thank you. 131873 2gb.com 4bc.com.au if you would like to join us. Now, Tony Adams is carrying a story today, and it's online. I think it'd be out of Channel 9 by the look of it. It's just been published. Dragons player rips teammates who ignored orders to party at Paul Vaughan's. The player wished to stay anonymous. He's been talking to Channel 9's Wide World of Sports. The Dragons barbecue benders created a massive rift in the club's playing ranks with a dozen players took up Paul Vaughan's invitation to flout COVID rules to party. Several of the Dragons squad declined the offer. Okay, so it was not as I thought, that they're not part of the cool group, so they didn't get invited. Some got offered the chance to come and said they didn't go. Those players are now filthy because the others have tarnished the club's image. We were told very clearly not to do anything silly, not to party, just to enjoy the moment after the win over the Warriors and go home, one Dragons player who told Wide World of Sports, these blokes knew it was wrong, did it anyway, have blackened the name of the club. We've all been tarred with the same brush. I'm embarrassed to be a Dragons rugby league player at this moment. It's probably cost us our chance at the finals. I hope these blokes think it was worth it. The Dragons now have to stand down a dozen players for each game over the next month. And what they've got to buy this weekend, then over the next 3 games, they've got to stand down 12 players. Now, the way I think they'll do it, and I'll be corrected, I think they've got Manly, Gold Coast and South Sydney. Now, I think that's the draw. I think they'll stand down 4 against Manly. They'll stand 3 down against the Gold Coast, and they'll have to stand 5 down against South Sydney to get to that magic number of 12. There you go. The player in question, talking to Tony Adams, didn't blame the club's management or culture at the incident. Management did all they could. You just can't hold these blokes' hands. They're grown men. They know right from wrong and chose to ignore the rules. That comes from a player inside the club who was invited but neglected or declined to attend because he knew it was the wrong thing to do. 131873 is the open line number, 2gb.com, 4bc.com.au, and it's coming up to 25 and a half to 12. Stephen at Parramatta, let me see whether he can be identified fully, seeing he's put his name. But no, don't read my surname. It's always wonderful when people write these sort of emails, but then put the thing at don't read my surname. With all due respect, the NRL is a large multi-million-dollar corporation. I've got to wonder why you continue to associate yourself with this business, given the years of criminal, sexual violence, antisocial, illicit drug, and general base behaviour. Surely this is well-established pattern of behaviour. You deserve your continued promotion. How many other business organisations would you afford these egregious missteps and still have your support? I guess a bloke's got to eat. Well, Stephen, let me assure you that I don't get paid anymore to call rugby league. I'm filling in at the moment to do people a favour. This is my job, what I do here, dealing with dickheads like you every day. Okay? So let me just tell you, Stephen, next time you are wanting to take me on about the fact that maybe I get paid to talk about rugby league, I don't. And just for the record, my appearances on 360 are a favour to an old mate, Stephen Crawley. I don't get paid for that either. I'm just doing a mate a favour. So I don't rely on rugby league for money, Stephen, you little grub. So next time you send one of your grubby emails to me, have the courage and the guts to identify yourself fully so I can identify you, you dickhead. She's lost the plot. Lockdown Fairfield, Bankstown, Liverpool. No lockdown eastern suburbs over the past week, particularly over the weekend when social distancing wasn't observed. Joe, I don't disagree with you. I think she should have moved quicker into the eastern suburbs, like she did with the northern beaches. But she let it get on top of her, and I don't disagree with you. I think you're exactly right. And they haven't locked down those LGAs at the moment. What they're saying is that they'll look at the figures tomorrow, and they're asking people not to go out. 27 is up until 8 o'clock last night, cases. They don't announce post 8 o'clock these days. They did previously, but now they've stopped doing it. So clearly they know there are a lot more coming. Phil Rothfield tells us the Queensland government has forced a venue change for Friday night's South Sydney-North Queensland match, originally set down for Stadium Australia. The game is switched to McDonald Jones Stadium, Newcastle, because the Olympic Park in Homebush has been identified as a COVID exposure site. The Queensland government refused to allow residents of the Sunshine State to enter a hotspot in Sydney, even if they're flying in and out on the same day. Newcastle hosted the Rooster Storm game last week, expected to be named as the State of Origin venue as well later today. So, yes, so in other words, for North Queensland to get back into Queensland, they can't come into Sydney, which is understandable, I guess, and so they'll be playing that game on Friday night at McDonald Jones Stadium at Newcastle. 131873 is the open line number, 2gb.com, 4bc.com.au, if you would like to join us. I've just come home from Riverwood. It's pension day. The St George Bank is closed, so is the Commonwealth Bank. They say because of COVID. Well, the Commonwealth Bank that I reported was not at Riverwood. It was at Roselands. But who knows? Ray, my nephew in South Africa, age 54, passed away from COVID after contracting it 9 days ago. It brings home to me how quickly the virus can strike. Well, touch wood, we haven't had a death this time with the Delta virus. This time we haven't had a death. But I will repeat, we've got 7 people in ICU, including a person under 30. So I guess we need to be pretty careful. And we sort of sit on the edge of our seats